America. In fact, some Republicans even had the gall to blame this bank collapse on wokeness.
Are you seeing other CEOs besides him kind of going, it's time to stop with the climate change and all the woke issues instead of focusing on the main mission of the bank?
I mean, you do have these banks focusing on ESG and on all of these sort of woke policies.
Nobody in Washington at this point even acknowledges economics is real unless it can be tied somehow to climate change or racism.
Everybody is focused on diversity and all of the woke issues and not concentrating on one thing they should, which is shareholder returns.
Now coming out that they were one of the most woke banks.
I'm sorry, are you out of your mind? You think Silicon Valley Bank was woke? Who do you think was running it? A gender-neutral potato head?
Today's video is brought to you by SKILLSHARE, the #1 online learning community for creators. Use the link in the description section below to start your learning experience today. The rich keep getting rich, and the poor keep getting poor. I'm sure that you have heard something to that effect of this particular statement over the course of your living. Through my personal experience, I find this to be very, very true. And it's not because the rich are necessarily smarter or that they work harder than the poor. It is because they have more information and that they are playing a completely different game than that of the average citizen. Now, whether you believe their actions are moral or immoral, right or wrong, it really doesn't matter. Because whatever you may want to call it, just be sure you add the fact that it is working. Here in the United States, we tend to make jokes, memes, funny videos, and lighthearted comments about everything. Now, low-key, I view it as a defensive mechanism used to keep from either exploding with frustration, anger, and fear, or simply just ignorantly avoiding the responsibility of taking accountability and putting forth true effort in the direction of a more perfect union. People like Senator Bernie Sanders and Senator Elizabeth Warren often get teased, mocked, because their age, appearance, political affiliation, and tone of voice. Though I certainly get my 7 chuckles in about them just like everyone else, I also believe that they sincerely care about a lot more than just themselves. After the 2008 financial crisis, in which large financial institutions like Washington Mutual failed, crashed, and burned, not only did those institutions get bailed out by the government, none of the executives were held accountable or responsible for what had happened. And to make matters even worse, their investors were bailed out as well. This is around the time we started hearing the term too big to fail for the banks. For those who may be ignorant to the reason why this is crazy, understand that when you are an investor, there are risks associated with investing. There are no guarantees, and you can potentially lose money. This is why it is important that you invest wisely. After this blatant slap in the face to the American taxpayers that actually had nothing to do with the shady business practices of these institutions, people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were literally predicting the future and constantly attempting to make the public aware of it. As usual, the public was preoccupied with funny pictures and jokes. In 2008, we also had the election of the first black president, Mr. Smooth himself, President Barack Obama. In 2010, the Democratic Party had control of the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the White House. Most people get their panties in a bunch and recall the passage of the Affordable Care Act. But President Obama also signed into legislation a new set of laws for banks called Dodd-Frank. This was named after Chris Dodd and Barney Frank. The new law required banks to keep a certain amount of cash on hand, a certain amount of liquid assets at the ready, so that they could meet their customers' demand, just in case for some strange reason, I don't know, like an inevitable financial crash. This would encourage everyone to withdraw their money all at once. The banks needed to be able to cover that. Well, 10 years later, when the country decided to go batshit crazy and elected 45, Republicans decided that Dodd-Frank was in the way and proceeded to make some changes to it. They started loosening restrictions. To those who were paying attention to stuff like this, that was their big deregulation agenda post-President Obama. It wasn't just Republicans that did this though. 17 Democrats signed along in the Senate, and 32 Democrats signed along in the House of Representatives. Like clockwork, Senator Warren was trying to let everyone know what was going to happen in the future because of this.
But I'm sorry. Yeah. Let me just stop it right there. 67. How does this get any votes? Any votes? We are now, next week, will be the 10th year anniversary of when Lehman Brothers crashed and signaled to the entire world that the collapse of 2008 had started. And how it could be that after we got some Dodd-Frank protections in place, after we got 10 years nearly of trying to rebuild, after the banks are more profitable than they have ever been in history, how could it be that this Congress is saying, I know what let's do. Let's make it easier for big banks to cheat American families. Let's make it easier for them to load up on risks. Let's take 25 of the 40 largest banks in America, banks that sucked down $50 billion in bailout money and nobody went to jail. Let's take them off the watch list and treat them like itty tiny little community banks out somewhere nowhere where they can't hurt the economy.
Needless to say, Senator Warren was 100% correct. Here we are today, and her prophecy has come to light. Silicon Valley Bank has gone under. To make matters even worse, on Friday, March 10th, 2023, Silicon Valley Bank executives started all of a sudden paying themselves congratulatory bonuses just hours before the FDIC came in to take over their institution. The CEO reportedly sold over $3.6 million in stocks just days before the company's collapse. A few other banks have gone under also. Within the midst of chaos, plenty of blame to go around, and the huge probability that none of these executives will be held accountable, there are some valuable lessons in this. The first lesson is that these cycles are going to continue to happen, and there's no one who has true incentive to do anything about it. The second and perhaps most important lesson is that if you aren't paying attention while also educating yourself to be involved in the type of game that's being constantly played, then you, my friend, should probably change your name to IgGGNoRant. Deuces.
And in fairness, you can't blame Trump for not knowing that. We have a team of researchers who can dig through the weeds of legislation to find carefully hidden adjustments to existing safety measures. It's not like Trump loudly bragged about it over and over again.
You have regulations that are horrendous. Dodd-Frank is an example of what we're working on, and we're working on it right now. So we're going to do a very major haircut on Dodd-Frank. We expect to be cutting a lot out of Dodd-Frank because, frankly, I have so many people, friends of mine, that have nice businesses. They can't borrow money. They just can't get any money because the banks just won't let them borrow because of the rules and regulations in Dodd-Frank. We're going to eliminate wasteful regulations, which we've already done, probably 25%. You can take a look at Dodd-Frank. For the bankers in the room, they'll be very happy because we're really doing a major streamlining and perhaps elimination and replacing it with something else.